Hi, we're going to be looking at newspaper articles today. So you're going to need to get yourself something to write on and write with. And today's title is Newspaper Articles. And your learning objective is to understand the purpose of newspaper articles and to be able to structure introductions effectively. So pause the video and write down today's title and what, please. You'll also need the keywords. Okay, so our keywords today are purpose, audience, features, introduction, and signpost. And by the end of today's lesson, then you're going to understand the purpose and audience of different newspapers. You're going to identify features of a newspaper. You're going to understand the term signposting and be able to apply it in your writing. And you're going to write your own introduction to a newspaper report. Let's have a look at today's keywords. Purpose. So thinking about TAP, where we have a text type, audience, and purpose. Purpose is why the text has been written. So what has it been written for? We're going to look at different purposes in a moment, and you're going to decide what the purpose of newspapers is. The audience are the people that will be reading a particular text. So who is it aimed at? Features are the techniques that are used by a writer to make it look like a particular text type. So think about different text types. For example, techniques used on a poster will be different to those used in a newspaper article. We're going to be looking at introductions. So that literally is the opening piece of information at the start of a particular text. And it sets out what the reader will expect to find. And that leads us on to signposting. So this sets out what you're going to say in the introduction. So think about signposting as a signpost you might find on the street that's pointing you in different directions. It will be showing you what you can expect to find in the rest of an article or piece of writing. Got different purposes for writing on the screen now. We've got entertain, inform, persuade, or argue. So what do you think is the main purpose of a newspaper? Let's have a look. Main purpose of a newspaper is to inform. So inform is the root word that's used in the word information. So that's to pass on knowledge, make others aware of a situation, or present facts. So think about how a newspaper is used to tell other people things that they didn't know before, or give them more information on stories that are breaking or changing. Got on the screen now different newspapers. I'd like you to have a look through and see if you recognise any of them. Have you seen them in the shops? Do any of your family read any of these newspapers? Have you read any of them, either physical newspapers or online? And just let's have a look through each one of them. So the first one we've got is The Sun. Then the next one in the list is The Times, Daily Mirror, The Guardian, Daily Star, The Telegraph, Daily Mail, Daily Express, and The Independent. So pause the video now and see if you can spot any similarities. Perhaps the first thing that you spotted was that these three have all got a red background to them. So that possibly links them all together. And you'd be right, they are all linked together. And because of this red background, they're known as red tops. You might also have noticed that some of them have the word daily in the title, in the name. So Daily Mirror, Daily Star, Daily Mail, Daily Express, telling you that this is a newspaper that's published every single day, from Monday to Friday. You might also have noticed that some of them have these intricate logos. And what does that tell you about the newspaper? Does it give you any information? Does it make it seem new or old? So to me, it suggests that these are newspapers that have been around a long time. It's like a coat of arms showing how powerful and informative these newspapers are. And then we've got some that have got very fancy fonts, which also makes them look like they've been around a very long time. And these newspapers have been. They're over 100 years old. Okay, let's move on to different types of newspapers then. So we're going to see if we can put these into different categories. And let's see if the ideas about similarities will help us with that. So on the left, we've got tabloid newspapers, and you can see that our red tops fall into this category here, but then we've got two sneaky ones at the bottom, this one in particular, that makes it look like it should be with these other fancy ones. However, the information in this newspaper is more suited to the tabloid. So this is a shorter newspaper. Back when newspapers were printed a long time ago, then this would have been a much smaller newspaper, whereas the broadsheets would have been much bigger and would have taken up much more space and huge sheets of paper used. So this is a smaller newspaper. It tends to use more emotive and dramatic language. So it will have really powerful headlines that might be quite funny in some ways. The sentences will be shorter, the vocabulary will be easier, and anybody will be able to read these and understand the news. It may have some made-up words. They may put words together to create interesting headlines. And these newspapers will be filled as well with celebrity news gossip. Whereas on a more serious side, the broadsheets have got more detailed news. They use longer sentences and have much more complex and formal language. So the vocabulary will be much more improved, it will be more detailed and maybe more difficult to understand. Also, factual information, you're not going to find lots of celebrity news and gossip. So we've got the Times, the Guardian, the Telegraph, and the Independent. We also have another type of newspaper that you might see either physically or it could be online, and those are local newspapers. So these deal with, for example, the Manchester Evening News, the whole of the Greater Manchester area. You'll notice next to the little B here, it says a friend dropping in, suggesting that this is something that's local and more friendly. We'll have powerful information and news from the local area, but there'll be more real life stories that might help to create a sense of community. You also may have a local newspaper like the Messenger that maybe drop through your letterbox, a free newspaper or something you can pick up in your local supermarket, or you might read this particular type of newspaper online. So it's going to have a combination of stories, local stories, and perhaps some local celebrity, local sports, and information about what's happening in your area. Let's see if we can work out who would read those different types of newspapers. So we're looking at who would read broadsheets, who would read tabloids, and who would read local newspapers. Let's have a look at this first guy here. It says, I need to know about the latest business news in depth, and I have an hour-long train journey to work to read all about it. This guy here says, I'm busy, so I want to read short summaries of the latest news. This girl here says, I love to read about the latest celebrity news. And this lady here says, I like to keep up to date with the latest news in my community. So pause the video now and decide who reads the broadsheet, who reads the tabloid, who reads the local news. Okay, how did you do? Yep, we've got the broadsheet here because we want that detailed, in-depth news that will take a long time to process. We've got a tabloid here, short stories, snappy, easy to get the main headlines. Local news, so you can keep up to date with what's happening in your area that's important to you. And finally, all that celebrity gossip is going to be in a tabloid as well. Let's have a look at a front page of a tabloid newspaper. So I've highlighted different parts of the newspaper and we're going to try and work out what the definitions are of these terms that are used in newspapers. So we've got the date and the price up here. We've got the masthead, this section here. We've got the main headline. We've got some subheadings. We've got a big photograph on the front and a caption. We've got an introduction or lead paragraph here. We've got a byline and we've got main body. So we're going to think about this information and see if we can do a match-up exercise. So on this slide now, you've got the vocabulary that I've just talked you through from the front page, but you've also then got definitions, but I've mixed them up. So I need you to pause the video and to match up the newspaper vocabulary with the correct definitions. So if you don't want to write them all out, you can literally write 1 to 9 and then choose the letter from the definition. So pause the video and have a go at that task now, please. Okay, let's have a look at the answers. So number 1 was I. So the masthead is that information at the top of the newspaper. So remember where it has the name of the newspaper, for example, the Sun. Photo, that's that picture of something that's important to that particular news article. Usually on a tabloid newspaper, then that's going to be a huge picture. The caption is that sentence underneath the picture that explains what the picture is about, gives you some more information. A headline is the short, catchy, bold comment and it hooks the reader. You might have spotted that the headline on the Sun newspaper that we showed you before was alliterative. That's a technique that's used by a lot of newspapers. The subheading, now on our newspaper, it was this in bullet points. So small headings, break up the story, make it easier to read, will just help you to know what's going to come up in that story. Quotations are the comments taken from people that are involved in the report. So it could be somebody's particular information about that report. It could be an eyewitness. It could be the person who the report is about. The byline is literally who it is by, the writer of the report. The introduction or the lead is that important first sentence or paragraph that tells you what the whole article is going to be about. And we're going to look at the 5 W's and how in a little bit more detail later. And the main body is the rest of the article, where it gives that information, the main points of the particular article. So there we have it again. Remember our date and title up at the top, our masthead where it's got the information about the newspaper, our headline, as I spotted before, we've got this nice piece of alliteration here, Ballsy Boris comes out fighting. The subheadings, which are in bullet points here, just gives you quick and simple information about what the article is going to be about. Big photograph to attract people when they're choosing a newspaper. Caption, in this case, it's a huge caption. Sometimes it may just be a small piece of writing underneath a photograph. We've also got this first paragraph that tells you who, what, when, where, why, and how. The byline, so who it has been written by, and the main body, so that's the rest of the article. As you can see, this is a very short article. It probably links to later on in the newspaper. Okay, let's have a look at a broadsheet newspaper. So I'd like you to work out where each of these things are. So the date and price, the masthead, the main headline, the subheadings, the byline, the introduction or lead, the main body, photograph, and the caption. So pause the video and see if you can match up the newspaper vocabulary to the features that you find on this front page of a broadsheet newspaper. So how did you do? We've got date and price up at the top here, the masthead where it gives us the information about the newspaper. We've got the main headline up at the top. Notice we've not gone with something funny or alliterative here, more serious because we're in a broadsheet newspaper. The subheadings, again, they've used bullet points here, but it just helps to summarize the article. The byline, so we can spot that in this case, it's actually been written by 3 different people, this article. So different people have contributed to this. The introduction or lead is that first paragraph that's going to hopefully tell us who, what, when, where, why, and how. Main body is the rest of the article. We've got, again, a large photograph, and we can spot that just underneath that photograph is a very small caption which describes when the photograph was taken and what it shows us. Check that you got all of those, and let's move on. I'm going to have a look at lead paragraphs. So this is going to give us the information, and it's going to give us those 5 W's and how. And I like to think of them as 5 bums on a seat. So we've got who, what, when, where, why, sitting on how. And this is going to give us the key points of the article and the order that the article will be set out. Let's have a read through this lead paragraph. So we've got our headline at the top, Boris is back. Another little bit of alliteration. And we've got a caption underneath our photograph. The Prime Minister is back in charge of the UK again after spending 3 weeks recovering from COVID-19. Let's read our paragraph. Boris Johnson started his first day back on the job by making a speech outside 10 Downing Street. He thanked the British people for continuing to stay home and following the guidelines to help save lives and protect the NHS, but warned that it was not time to come out of lockdown just yet. So this opening paragraph is signposting us and showing what the article's about and which order the information will appear in. So who is the article about? It's about Boris Johnson. What's happening in the article? What is it about? It's telling us that he's recovered from COVID-19 and he's back at work. So when is it written? It's written about his first day back at work. Where is he? He's outside 10 Downing Street. Why is he talking to us? He's thanking the country for following the guidelines. And how is he doing this? Is by making a speech. So can you spot any of the De Forester techniques in here? You could pause the video now and have a look and see if you can spot any of the techniques from De Forester. Let's have a go with a lead paragraph ourselves. So we're going to work out who it's about, what's happening in it, when was it written or when is it talking about, where, why, and how. We've got our headline here, gaming soars. We've got an image of 2 people playing a video game with consoles in their hands. And it says video game usage has spiked dramatically since people have been told to stay at home. Online game site Steam has seen their all-time highest user figures with 20,312,000 people logged on at the same time. US telecommunications company Verizon has reported a 75% spike in gaming usage on their network at peak times. So pause the video and work out, who is this about? What is it talking about? When are people online? Where is this happening? Why is it happening? And how is it happening? Okay, let's have a look. So this has been reported by an online game site called Steam. And what they're telling us that there has been a huge spike in the number of people who are playing video games online. And when is this happening? It's happening at peak times. So where is online, but it's also, we can spot that it's happening in America. This is an American site. Why are people playing video games more? Because they've been having to stay at home and locked down. And how do we know that all of these things, that there's been a spike? We know by the statistics. So we know by the number of people that have logged on and the 75% spike. You can pause again and see if you can spot any Daft Forrester techniques in the article. Over to you for your final task now. So, Stretford High School was one of the first schools to close in the lockdown, and there are newspaper articles about that. What we'd like you to do now is to have a go at writing your own lead paragraph. So just that single opening paragraph about the lockdown and Stretford High School closing its doors. So you've got your headline here, Stretford High School shuts its doors. You've got your image, and you are simply going to write that opening paragraph with the 5 W's in. So who is it about, what is it about, when, where, why, and how. So probably going to be about 4 sentences. Have a go at writing that. You can send it in to me and I will check it for you and give you some feedback, or you can show it to someone at home, or you could even go and find the article online and compare your paragraph to the ones that were written in the Manchester Evening News. Okay, so have we done all the things that we needed to do? Do we understand the purpose of an audience of different newspapers? So can you remember about the tabloid newspapers and the broadsheet newspapers and the local newspapers? Can you remember the features of a newspaper, and would you be able to spot them? So the key ones being the masthead, the picture and caption, the headline and subheadings, the lead article, information paragraph, the main body of the article, the byline. And did you understand the signposting, the way that that first paragraph is going to point your reader to the different information that you will reveal to them? And then have you had a go at writing your own newspaper report? Simple first paragraph. Okay. As I say, if you want to email those to me, I can check them for you. Thanks very much. Bye.